On. Hi. Welcome.
We're reading the Garuda Purana, first Khanda, chapter 226, and it's entitled Yoga and Its Components. This is a very interesting thing, this yoga thing. It's become popular and widespread practice in the West, but what is known as yoga these days by most people, not to overgeneralize or anything, is very different from what was being called yoga in the past. In fact, and it's interesting, even here in the West, after how many years? You've sort of done a little research. It's the 20s,
Well,
basically.
in
Maybe
this
it started
town,
the
it's
19.
since the 1918, I think it was. Yogi Wasan was teaching yoga and had so many people in his class there was no room big enough.
This was Yogi Wasan, who wrote the books that I found in Olympia when I was a kid. That guy. Oh, I thought that was a different one.
And then there was the great came and established tantric temples. There were 5 tantric temples here in 1925. We had one of the earliest theosophical societies, and they were all tied into this, the Enlightenment's coming from India thing, and because some of the earliest translations or hints about what might be in this religious literature from India was in things like Madame Blavatsky's books, Isis Unveiled, and also her other one, I've forgotten the name of it.
In any case,
but these were important situations, important
contributions.
Well, attempts to bring to the West the wisdom of the East.
Yeah, well, there's the wisdom of the East.
Krishnamurti comes out of this.
Yeah. Wait, focus. We're the wisdom of the East, but we're talking about yoga,
right?
Specifically.
But yoga is hooked into all of this.
Well, of course,
it's like nobody would know about yoga if it hadn't been for these movements that were trying to bring
These were the first waves to America bringing these things, and later waves included the autobiography of a yogi.
Yogananda.
Thank you.
Yogananda. And Vivekananda is also very important. He was a very early one.
Yeah, well, Vivekananda and Ramakrishna.
The great was the first white yoga teacher I know of, but he's really early.
But these were, to a large extent, I mean, there was a little yoga practice thrown in, but a large extent, this was more the philosophical underpinnings or the wisdom of the East that you're talking about. But yoga, as it became practiced, became more of a physical practice. It didn't.
You're talking about hatha yoga.
Well, I'm talking about hatha, and in particular, and now people are talking about other dimensions of yoga. There's Laya yoga, Kriya yoga, Raja yoga, and as understood and practiced in the West, they are often, in varying degrees, still using something like hatha yoga as their core. I'm just saying it's very interesting. We have a window on the past. The ancients were trying to tell us something. They were speaking to the people that came before them. They were speaking to the people that would come after. And they're trying to tell us about this thing that they call yoga. And so it'll be very interesting.
Which just means union. This word just means...
It's etymologically the same as yoke. Yoke, not of an egg, but of 2 oxen. It is the binding of the self to the great, to the macrocosm, the microcosm to the macrocosm, through the medium of the body, which some say is also the source of the word tantra. The ton part is the body. Anyway, we could go on for quite a long time, but let's see what the ancients were trying to tell us about yoga. Suta said, I shall explain the great yoga with its component parts, that yields worldly enjoyments and salvation. It quells all sins if read with devotion. Please listen to it. The feeling of myness, not minus, but myness, is the root cause of all miseries, which can be removed by the feeling of not mine. The noble-minded Dattatreya mentioned the same to Alarka. The tree of ignorance sought by the worldly minded for the sake of happiness and peace has the great basin round it in the form of riches and food grains. Its root is sin, the germinating sprout is the feeling of egoism, the great main trunk is the feeling of myness. Houses, fields, etc. are its branches, wives, sons, etc. are its tender leaves. Those who imbibe the divine Brahma rasa, free from dusts of Rajoguna, and are thornless, hew it down with the axe of learning and merge themselves in the supreme God. Boy, was that a metaphor. It was a...
The tree of ignorance, I thought, was very interesting.
Okay, starting with stanza 6. Intellectually efficient persons thus attain the highest bliss. So they see that this great tree that they imagine, this tree of ignorance, it calls it at the beginning, as opposed to the tree of knowledge.
They're obviously dialoguing with someone else there.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, don't you? But it's built on worldly things, and and its root is this sense of myness and of this is my fill in the blank. These are my wives. These are my sons. Or the leaves.
My country.
The houses are the branches, and
my house, my stuff.
And that you have the capacity intellectually to cut through this illusion and to recognize that this is ignorance, and then you cut down the tree with the axe of learning. All right, so intellectually efficient persons thus attain the highest bliss. O king, Alarka, because this is now, it seems to be, it's slipped into quoting Dattatreya speaking to Alarka, because at least if he's correct in telling us that the king that's being addressed is Alarka, because in the second stanza it told us the noble-minded Dattatreya mentioned the same to Alarka.
Right.
So, O king, the self in which the sense organs get merged is neither your physical body nor mine. It is not what you see and feel as important, nor is it the tanmatra, the essential matter, the elements, really, the principles, nor the speech, nor the mind, which is the internal sense organ. The self identified with the body dies today and is born again tomorrow. It is due to the three gunas. Though the body and the soul seem to be one, there is actually the distinction between the two. A yogin who knows this distinction attains salvation, which is the identity with the Supreme Soul. O son, it is due to the trigunas, the three gunas, that this identity is not realized. That is called house, where one stays. That is diet, whereby one sustains oneself. Similarly, there is real knowledge which is conducive to salvation. Ignorance brings about adverse results. Merits and demerits, O king, can be exhausted by duly experiencing the fruits thereof. Talking about karma there. The annihilation of the activities yet to be performed is possible by non-performance. Just say no, don't do it. 12. The yamas, or niyamas, the restraints, guides for moral behavior that are today, even to this day, considered an aspect of yoga, especially the Raja Yoga tradition, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra tradition. So the yamas or niyamas are of 5 types: non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, celibacy, and non-acceptance of gifts. Shaucha, or purity, is of 2 varieties, internal and external. Apavitraha pavitrova. This purification specifically addresses purifying one internally and externally. Dhamma, suppression, is contentment, quiescence due to austerities, and the worship of Vasudeva. By asana, we mean the different postures, such as padmaka, etc. Pranayama means full control of breath. It is of three types: puraka, inhaling; kumbhaka, retaining; and rechaka, exhaling, each of which is again subdivided into three. The laghu, of short duration, consists of 10 matras, periods of less than a second. The madhyama is of 20 matras, and the uttama consists of 30 matras. A pranayama with japa, which is the repetition of a mantra, and dhyana, which is meditation, is called sagarbha. Literally, that would mean with womb pranayama. Sagarbha pranayama, opposite of which is agarbha pranayama, without womb. Take that as you may. 16. One shall conquer the various defects in the body by means of pranayama. By puraka, inhaling, somnolence is to be conquered. By kumbhaka, retention of breath, one can conquer the shivering sensation. By rechaka, exhalation, one can conquer the augmentation or excess of heat in the body. 17. Seated in a comfortable yogic posture, pressing the penis and the testicles with the heels, one shall keep the pranava in the heart and practice pranayama. Ladies, just do what you think is appropriate. 18. The function of the tamoguna must be suppressed by means of rajoguna, and the rajoguna is to be suppressed by means of sattva guna, and ultimately the practicer of yoga should maintain himself in nischala vritti, unruffled, serene state. 19. The sense organs, the vital air, and the mind should be withdrawn from the sensual objects. The complete abstraction is called pratyahara, which should be constantly practiced. Taking 8 or 10 pranayamas is called dharana. Persons who are able to see the truth have thus spoken of 2 types of dharanas. There are 10 points of concentration for the practice of dharana. First is the nari, nerves, or nabhi, the umbilicus. Meditate on your belly button. Then it actually comes from something. Then in order, in the heart, throat, mouth, tip of the nose, middle of the eyebrows, head, and then finally in the supreme soul. So this is more than the chakras, more than the 7 chakras. There are other nerve centers, and especially to speak of the nadis, these are the nerves that run throughout the body. 23. As one fire gets merged in another fire, so the individual soul gets merged in the supreme soul. The single syllable Om, which is the symbol of Brahman and very holy, should be repeated frequently. The 3 syllables U, and together constitute the mystic syllable Om, which symbolizes the imperishable Brahman. The 3 letters, it says actually. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence divested of the gross body. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence devoid of old age and death. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence untainted by the dirts of the principle of earth. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence free from the principles of Vayu and ether. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence divested of the subtle body. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence unlimited by space or absence of space. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, free from the essential principle of smell. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, free from the principles of ear and skin, sound and touch. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, free from tongue and nose. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, free from prana and apana. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, free from vyana and udana. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, devoid of the influence of nascience. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence, the greatest of the three padas, devoid of body, sense organ, minds, intellect, prana, and the ego. I am Brahman, the eternal, the pure, the enlightened, the conjoined, the bliss, the non-bifurcated. I am Brahman, the greatest effulgence of the form of supreme knowledge for salvation.
This identification with Brahman,
Brahman, the principle, beyond the deity Brahma.
It's interesting because I think of Brahman as the creator of the world in a way because he is the center of the four directions. So wherever you are aware of east of you, west of you. And these are the four faces of Brahma, of the directions. So
he had five, but Shiva burned one off.
Yeah.
We're not done.
Oh, sorry.
Suta said, we're at 33, 34. O Shaunika, I have thus explained to you the science of yoga with its eight components that yield salvation. Those who are bound by the fetters of natural evolution are definitely reborn after the nitya and naimittika layas, the permanent and causal dissolutions, but not so after attaining the Supreme Soul. A man deludedly ignorant becomes free due to knowledge and emancipates himself. Thereafter he does not die. He is not miserable. He is not sick. He is not fettered. A truthful person is untainted by sins. He is never tortured in hell. He has no misery of being in the womb. He becomes one with Narayana, the unchangeable. With single-minded devotion alone he has to be attained, the Lord, who accords worldly enjoyments and salvation. By means of contemplation, worship, japas, correctly sung songs of praise, duly performed rites, sacrifices, and gifts, the mind becomes pure, and true knowledge is obtained thereby. Brahmins in days of yore have attained salvation by repetition of pranava and other mantras. Indra attained the greatest region due to it. The Gandharvas, the celestial damsels, and the Devas attained devahood due to it. The sages gained their sagehood, the Gandharvas their Gandharvahood, and the kings their kingship due to this alone. Now that chapter is over, but there's more to come as we explore the world of yoga. So it does mention, things that are familiar, the traditional yamas and niyamas, the acts of commission and omission, which are considered beneficial, cultivating not sins of omission and commission, but things you should do and things you shouldn't do.
And asana, and pranayama.
It talks about asana and pranayama. What I always find that asana is underplayed in these older texts on yoga. It may be mentioned, but often, it's like reduced to something very simple, like sit in a comfortable position, or, press your heel against your penis and testicles, as in this case, and shut up. And pranayama is given more attention often. It's in many of the texts, we're just looking at this one text, but it's characteristics of a lot of these older references to yoga that they're more concerned about the union. It's about the spiritual union, but using means that include asana and pranayama
Right.
and meditation
And self-awareness in this case,
and
where they're
recitation of mantras.
trying to eliminate the the boundary between the labeled and the labeler.
Mm.
So they're trying to get rid of this veil of names, if you want.
So we will talk about yoga a little bit more tomorrow. Thank you.